Hi, everybody, and welcome to my presentation on supply. At this point, you should have some fill in the blank notes available to you that will allow you to take notes on this presentation, and then you can use those notes when you take the quiz after this presentation. So get those notes handy, and it will help reinforce the concepts we are about to talk about. So let me introduce you to the other half of the equation. You guys studied demand last week, and this week we are going to add supply, and then eventually we'll put the two together, and that will give us price. All right, so let's get into the basics, and we are going to talk about the law of supply. Supply is the amount of goods or services available. So, how do business owners decide how much of an item to make or to supply? Well, according to the law of supply, producers offer more of a good as its price increases and less as its price falls. Economists use the term quantity supplied to describe how much of a good a supplier is willing to offer at a specific price. So let's explore, how does the law of supply work? Well, the law holds that as the price of a good rises, businesses that are currently making the product will increase production to earn more profit. In addition, new businesses will start up to try and earn a profit for themselves. And if the price of the good falls, some businesses will produce less and some will stop selling the good entirely. In both cases, the search for profit drives the supplier's decision making. So let's take a visual look at the law of supply, and you can see that on your screen. And we're going to once again use pizza as an example, just like we did with demand. So notice a pizza maker sells 100 slices of pizza a day at $3 a slice. So that brings $300 in revenue. Now, market prices for pizza slices rise from $3 to $4. So should the pizza maker make more pizza? Let's figure that out. So continuing to make and sell 100 slices a day at $4 will give them $400 in revenue. And making 125 slices a day at $4 a slice will bring in $500 in revenue. So here you see the law of supply at work. The rising prices for pizza slices means that the pizza makers should make more pizza. All right, now, just like with a demand schedule, a supply schedule shows the relationship between price and quantity supplied. And again, you see the law of demand in action on this supply schedule. Note that as the price rises, so does the number of slices that the pizza is willing to produce each day. Now, again, same as demand, a rise or fall in price will cause the quantity supplied to change, not the supply schedule itself. A change in price would move the business owner to a different row on the supply schedule. But again, the schedule itself would not change. Now, just as we do with demand curves into demand schedules, we also graph supply schedules into supply curves. So a supply curve is a visual representation of a supply schedule. And you can see here it is similar to the demand curve, except the horizontal axis, the east-west axis, now measures quantity supplied, not quantity demanded. Now, the other interesting thing to note is supply curves always rise from left to right. Remember, demand curves always fall from left to right. So supply curves move in the opposite direction to illustrate the law of supply. And again, keep in mind that demand curves, or excuse me, as with demand curves, supply curves only take price and quantity supplied into consideration. All right, let's practice what we learned. And so I'm going to ask you right now to pause and fill in the missing spaces in the supply schedule that you have in front of you. So pause this video and then come on back when you're finished. All right, welcome back, everybody. So again, you took the information from the supply curve and you should have put it into the schedule. So the price of a slice of pizza at $1, how many slices per day are supplied? That is 1,000. And then again, what about the price when slices are at 20 or at 1,500? That answer is $2. And when the price rises to $3, the owner is willing to produce 2,000 slices a day. When 2,500 slices are provided per day, the cost is $4. At $5, of course, you can see this is moving very symmetrically, very linearly. At $5, the price rises to, the quantity supplied rises to 3,000. And then, of course, at 3,500, the price is $6. Perfect. All right. So let's talk, before we get to our activity, I want to introduce one more concept related to supply, and that is the idea of elasticity. So elasticity of supply measures how businesses will respond to changes in the price of a good or services. So how will businesses respond? So when elasticity is greater than 1, that means a product is elastic. That means it's very sensitive to price changes. When elasticity is less than 1, that is inelastic, meaning it is not very sensitive to price changes. And then finally, there's a third type of elasticity, and that is unitary elastic. That's when elasticity is exactly at 1, and that is when the percentage change in price is equally matched by a percentage change in supply. And obviously, that is really kind of the ideal. Okay, so let's talk about how you determine elasticity of supply. And it's pretty easy. The way to determine elasticity of supply is to think about time. All right, time. I know it sounds abstract, but let me explain this to you. In the short run, a business cannot easily change its quantity supplied. So supply is inelastic. It's just the way most large businesses operate, is they can't respond to things in just a couple of days or in a week. It usually takes them some time to shift or change. So again, in the short run, most quantity supplied is inelastic. For example, orange trees take several years to grow. So a grower would have to wait several years for an investment in an orange grove to pay off. So if prices for oranges rise or fall, the supply of oranges is inelastic because the grower can't easily increase or decrease output in a short period of time. So you want to use that as your rule of thumb. So if a supplier cannot easily increase or decrease output in a short period of time, supply is going to be inelastic. And of course, that works in reverse. In the long run, most businesses are more flexible, so supply becomes elastic. Again, orange growers can plant more trees to increase their output over a period of time. And they can monitor earnings over several years and decide to grow or sell something else. So in the long run, oranges to this grower are more elastic. Supply is more elastic because they can take steps to either increase or decrease their supply of oranges. All right. So keep that in mind. This slide's important, and you might want to go back and review it because we're going to review. All right, so for each of the scenarios that I'm about to give you, think about time, think about, can this business change their supply quickly or not, right? And usually, again, if it can't easily be changed in the short term, the supply, it's going to be inelastic. If it can be changed, and then again, supply becomes more elastic over time. So let's see what happens here. Do you think supply will be elastic or inelastic in the short term if shipping rates for ocean crossing supertankers increases dramatically? So let's break that down. All right. You buy products from overseas, and you have those products shipped to you. Now, if the rates for ocean crossing super tankers all of a sudden increases by a lot, would the supply be for your goods be elastic or inelastic in the short term? Well, take a moment, think about that. Right? If shipping rates for ocean crossing super tankers increase dramatically, do you think supply will be elastic or inelastic in the short term? Okay, let's talk about the answer. It would be inelastic. Why? Because companies still need to ship merchandise, and it would take a while to investigate less expensive shipping options. So in this case, supply would be inelastic. Again, over time, companies could shift to shipping their goods by plane or find some other way besides using these expensive super tankers. All right, let's practice another one. Here we go. Do you think supply will be elastic or inelastic in the short term when barbers notice they are charging too little for haircuts? All right, so again, think about that. Barbers notice they're charging too little for haircuts. They supply the item, they supply the service, right? They cut hair. So can their supply be elastic or inelastic in the short term? Here we go. It's elastic, right? Because they can immediately raise their prices. So if they realize, hey, I'm undercharging my customers, well, they can just change their prices and post those up and say, hey, I've raised my prices by $1 or $2 or whatever they've decided, right? So that's elastic. All right, let's try one more. Do you think supply of doctors will be elastic or inelastic in the short term if wages for doctors spike sharply? Do you think supply of doctors will be elastic or inelastic in the short term if wages for doctors spike sharply? All right. You can pause me if you want to think about this. All right, here we go. That would be inelastic because it takes years to become a doctor. So people can't just decide to become a doctor to quickly earn more money because they see wages spike, right? The supply of doctors in this situation would still be inelastic, at least in the short term, right? Okay, excellent. So we've practiced 3. And you guys are ready to go off and practice on your own. So you have 2 assignments. First, you're going to go complete a Google form in Schoology. And again, you're going to do the same thing we just did with those 3 practice questions. So do you think the supply will be elastic or inelastic in the short term, and why? That's what you're going to answer in the Google form. Then you are going to use the notes that you just took, and you are going to take a review quiz on the fundamentals of supply in Schoology. When you are finished with that, you may log off. Thank you so much for your time today. Off you go to complete these 2 assignments.